What's up, guys? It's Justin from EliteLifeNutrition.com, and you're listening to the Elite Life Podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about the single best way to overcome panic attacks or any type of fear for that matter in your life that is overcoming you, that is, very powerful, that really seems to be stopping you in your tracks and stopping and preventing you from being able to do what you want to do. Real quickly, though, before we dive into the episode and talk about the single greatest way to overcome your fears and specifically panic attacks, make sure you go to EliteLifeNutrition.com right now to check out our organic super greens product. Mentioned it a few weeks back. Sold out for a couple of weeks, but we just got it back in stock. So it's one of our best supplements, I think personally. Daily blend of greens, fruits, veggies, all organic, USDA certified, by the way. And this includes organic cabbage, pea, spinach, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, spirulina, strawberry, carrots, cherry, blueberries, blackberries, all kinds of incredible superfoods in this one little bottle. So it's amazing. Helps you feel amazing, helps you feel more refreshed, energetic throughout the day. It feels like you're dialed in and focused and can do what you want to do. Really one of my favorite supplements, and I'm really proud of being able to bring it to Elite Life Nutrition. So check it out, EliteLifeNutrition.com right now. Organic super greens, my favorite new product. That said, let's dive right into the episode. And so I had panic attacks for a couple of years at the end of around high school years, actually right before I think graduation. For that time period, there's a lot of things going on back then in my life, and I was a kid just doing dumb things and started to develop this really bad anxiety and didn't know how to deal with it. It was really crippling. It was debilitating. It turned into panic attacks all the time. I talk about it in Elite Mind, by the way, best-selling Amazon book. Came out a couple of years back. Really detail, the specifics of what was happening at that period of time and the whole compendium of things I turned to overcome the anxiety, the panic attacks, and depression problems I had. But it came down, so all the fancy things out there, I tried everything under the sun. Nothing was working for a long time until I started finding a couple of things that did work, and then it kind of propelled me into finding a formula that really did overcome all these things without, by the way, the help of prescription medication, which I'm a big proponent of not taking if you don't have to. And in many cases, you don't have to take it when it comes to anxiety and depression. There are some very small cases where those things are needed or necessary, perhaps in things like conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar, when other options have already been tried, or when it's too extreme to try to go a more natural alternative approach, you may need medication to step in and actually help in that point. And sometimes it does. For some people it works, but in the overwhelming majority of cases, from all the research I've done, prescription meds are not necessary, and actually in many cases they can harm rather than help a lot of individuals, especially when it comes to just regular, sort of everyday anxiety that most Americans face nowadays. And anxieties and stress regarding work or relationships or where you are in your life, or just certain things that pop up throughout the day that give you anxiety or stress. You don't need to be popping a prescription medication to overcome that. There are many, many other alternative and much more safe and effective ways to do that. And in my experience, when it comes to panic attacks, there's really a mindset shift that goes into overcoming panic attacks and overcoming really any debilitating fear to the point where it cripples you, to the point where you can't actually go forward and do what you want to do in life, whatever that may be. It's really a simple, not easy, but simple strategy, and it's a mental strategy to actually flip the script on how you view the fear that it is that you're facing, whatever it is that's triggering that panic or that severe anxiety. It's a simple switch in the brain that you can use that actually will help you then overcome it. And I've used this since discovering this many times over to the point where I don't even have to think about it anymore because it's just simply gone at this point. That, severe debilitating anxiety. And the last panic attack I had was when I talk about it in the book, was when I was probably 18 years old, 17 years old, something like that. Once I used this formula from that point forward, the panic was just simply gone and just never came back. No more attacks after that. Things I've had anxiety, certain periods pop up, but then the anxiety goes rather quickly, disperses, and it's gone as well, and has never really been an issue. Actually, has never been an issue from that point forward. And it's also how you can view your anxiety. In some certain situations, like if you're going on stage to give a speech, you're going to have a little anxiety. If you're going on a first date and you're about to meet a beautiful girl, you're going to have some anxiety surrounding that. If you're going, to a big sports game, you're playing basketball, you're playing in the championship game, you're going to have some anxiety surrounding that. But it's how you view that anxiety which determines how you then react to that and the outcome that you're going to get from that. So you can actually view the anxiety as a good thing, and in terms of going on stage to give a speech, because you're going to be performing at your very best. The same thing with the date, same thing with the basketball game. You're actually going to have these excitatory neurotransmitters and other hormones going through your body that's going to give you adrenaline and cortisol. Is going to give you peak performance. It's actually going to fuel you up and help you perform better. So it actually has, long story short, it's a long-winded way of saying it actually has a purpose, and in this case it actually is a good thing when you view it differently, when you don't let the anxiety overcome you. You don't let all this stress about the performance that you're going to have in a moment, or in a couple of hours, whatever it may be. You don't let it overcome you and take over you and consume you, but rather you use it as a weapon to then perform at your very best. But when it comes to specifically panic attacks, it's really a 3-step, and I got this actually from a guy. It was an ebook. I think he actually later turned it into a course of some sort. I checked on it actually when I was writing the book a few years back, and it was like some course that he had developed. But it was literally a simple, like 30-page little tiny ebook, not even a real book, but an ebook. Not to discredit or take away from it, but it was a tiny little ebook I found online way back when. This is 16 years ago or so, and it was the most simplistic, downright, in my opinion, at the time, before actually implementing it, stupidest idea when it came to how to overcome a panic attack. It's very simple. I'm just going to name it out and then show you how it works. But the 3 steps when you're getting a panic attack: step number 1 is to simply observe. Do nothing but observe what's happening around you. Number 2 is to welcome the panic in with open arms. Actually, you can have a verbal dialogue in your head of saying, welcome whatever it is. Welcome fears of failure. Welcome fears of messing up. Welcome butterflies in my stomach. Welcome sweaty palms, whatever it may be. And the 3rd step is to ask for more of it. And you can actually get pretty excited about this declaration of calling for more of the fears. You literally can yell it out in your head, or you can yell it aloud. And it's simply like, give me more of this panic, give me more of these fears, give me more of these butterflies, give me more of these sweaty palms, these, this weak stomach, these whatever symptoms, sensations you get when you're very anxious or when you're about to get a panic attack. You simply call these things out and ask for more of them. And the more you ask for more of them, the more you call them out, the more you actually pull these skeletons out of the closet and bring them to the light and face them, face to face. The crazy thing is, and here's where it's so counterintuitive, to be asking for more of what you fear, to be asking more of what's causing all this in the moment terror and pain. The craziest thing is, when you do this, all of those things start to disappear. Like it's unbelievable. It's like these ghosts that only exist in the dark. And when you turn on the lights and you actually just look at them, you look at one ghost and the next and the next and the next. Every time you try to see them, they just disappear in front of your eyes, because the truth is, all of this anxiety, all this panic, all these fears, it's all just a concoction in your mind. It's all a fabrication of your imagination. You're creating your own stress. You're creating your own fears in these moments. You're creating these, your own ghosts or your skeletons in the closet, and you're creating this whole storyline in your brain. The brain, the mind is a very powerful thing, and it actually creates this whole story of what could happen to you. You're projecting yourself into the future of all these negative things, and that's what's causing all these things to appear. But when you actually call them all out, when you look them face to face, when you say to yourself, even if you don't really believe it, but you could say it out loud, and then you start to believe it, the more you actually, you know, uh, declare it, the more you affirm it, the more your brain is actually tricked into believing it. And the next thing you know, when these things start to just like evaporate and disappear, you really do believe it, because the fears are going away right before your very eyes. And I've used this many times. I've talked about this in the past, but I've used it, to ride roller coasters. I used to be very deathly afraid of roller coasters. I would do this same mind trick, and call aloud the fears of going on a roller coaster. And lo and behold, I started loving roller coasters after that. I could get on a roller coaster and have a great time, not just like survive a roller coaster, but actually love the ride and enjoy the whole ride of the roller coaster. As afraid as I was before, now I actually loved it. And the same thing can be applied to anything you do. If you're going on stage, if you're going on a first date, if you're about to perform if you're going to play in a basketball game, in the championship game, you can do all of these things and just apply this same technique over and over again. And one of the coolest movies, one of my favorite movies of all time, is The Wizard of Oz. And low budget, 1939 it was made. They didn't have CGI. They didn't have all these great effects like they do today. They didn't, they did a remake of The Wizard of Oz a few years ago with I forget his name, John Franco, I think his name is something Franco, and it was actually a pretty cool movie. And they had like the high effect, the great effects, CGI, this and that. It was actually a decent movie. It's pretty cool, but nothing beats the original. I mean, it was just the original, just an all-time classic, probably a top 10 movie of all time. It was just that good. It's a kid's movie kind of, but it's also, an adult movie. You can enjoy that as an adult. I still do. But one of the most, and there's so many good storylines in the movie, and there's so many good takeaways and meaningful takeaways that you can get from The Wizard of Oz. But perhaps one of the best, perhaps one of the most meaningful, profound messages from that movie is the moment when the Dorothy, the lion, the cowardice lion, Toto the dog, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man. They're all in the wizard's room, and they're asking him, this great wizard. He's projected onto the wall. They're looking up at this curtain, and he's like, he's cast onto the curtain from some type of like magic sorcery. He's like magically there in his giant head, and he's talking in this booming voice. And they're all like scared of him because he's frightening them, he's terrifying them, he's saying all these things in a powerful, demeaning, and sort of authoritarian manner. And so they're all scared of him because he has clearly, this wizard has all these magical powers and this and that, and they're asking him for help, and he's denying them. Long story short, as they're going through this whole spiel and like trying to get the wizard's help unsuccessfully, the little dog, this little tiny little 5-10 pound dog, runs to the side, kind of off screen, and then goes over and pulls back a curtain and reveals the truth behind this majestical wizard. And the truth is, the wizard is just a tiny little guy who has elaborate machines to project this face, this like menacing face of sort of what he looks like, but a more menacing, terrorizing version of himself, and a giant projection. It was basically using a projector and using some lights and sound effects to make him seem like he had these crazy powers, but he really clearly didn't. And the dog, the little tiny Cairn Terrier, I think it was, exposes this fact, and they all kind of look over after the curtain is pulled back to see the little old man. And in that moment, all their fears of this wizard that they just had a moment ago evaporate. They all disappear. In that moment, all their fears about, what this wizard could do to them immediately subside. They just totally disappear. And in that moment, all their power is given right back to them. When they realize in their mind that this guy really doesn't have any power over them, immediately the switch is flipped. The whole script is turned around upside down, and now they have the power. And when they have the power, they end up getting what they want. They end up demanding, to have his help, to whatever. I mean, clearly he doesn't have, wizard-like powers, but he did have enough powers to kind of help them out and do a few certain things to get them back on the road and get them back on track and get them what they needed. But if they didn't have that happen, if they didn't have the switch being turned on in that moment and getting the power back, they would have just, terrifyingly kind of whimpered away in defeat. But it's the perfect, really, analogy of what we're talking about today, of what terror, what panic looks like in real life, of these things that we concoct in our minds that really aren't true. And, in some cases there are real threats, of course. If you're in the woods and a bear pops up, you're going to have, some panic. You're going to have some anxiety, which is a good thing. Again, there's a time and a place for these things. But I'm talking about uncontrolled panic, unfettered anxiety that you can't grasp, that you can't actually control and use to your benefit. Debilitating, crippling panic attacks and fears that overwhelm you, that you can't actually do anything with, that are not useful or productive. That's what we're talking about here. And this is the perfect analogy. When you can actually control these things in life, when you realize that the fears and the projections into the future and the terrors and the panic, the panic attacks that you're getting are not helping you, but they're rather just a trick that your mind's playing on yourself. At that point, when you can expose that and realize that there's nothing to really fear there, you don't have to continue to suffer from these things. You can simply observe, you can then simply welcome, and then finally you can actually call out these demons, these ghosts, these skeletons in the closet that are causing you these problems. You can simply call them out and declare and affirm that you're no longer going to be afraid of them. And it's a mental battle. It's not, like I said, it's not easy necessarily. Although it does get very easy once you do it one time and you successfully do it one time. It's actually very easy after that. It's not easy in the beginning though, because it's probably the biggest challenge you'll ever face in your life, when you can go up against a single thing that's causing you that fear and terror right now. It can be scary to do, but it's very simple to do. And if you have the courage to do that, if you have the courage to call it out, to challenge it, to face it head on, what you realize is that those fears will disappear. And that's where the real magic is. It's up here. It's not some projection onto the wall or a curtain and some wizard. It's actually in your head. You have this type of power to control what's going to happen in your life and what's going to be the outcome of the things that you want. And you don't have to be crippled or harmed or debilitated or held back in any type of way because of fears or panics or anxieties that you may be getting. And that's really it. That's the simplest way to do it. It's simple, not necessarily easy, but once you do it once, it does get much easier after that. And your panic attacks will go away. Your fears, your anxieties will be managed, and in the times where you do get anxiety still, you do get stress, you can actually use that to your benefit. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. We're going to be doing more of these the next few weeks coming up. Again, there's been a lot of things going on in the background, just working on so many different projects right now. But I promise you, we will be getting to a more routine schedule, and the interviews are coming up. We got that in the pipeline. We're working on those as well, and we're going to be back very soon on a good routine that you guys are going to love. So in the meantime, make sure you check out EliteLifeNutrition.com. Organic Super Greens, one of the best super greens products in the world. My personal favorite, USDA certified organic, all kinds of incredible greens, fruits, veggies, just powerful superfoods that really help you feel amazing every day. But again, that's it for today. EliteLifeNutrition.com. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.